Mr. Sarwari, welcome to the Insider's Guide, the show where we explore how young people can break into exciting careers, whether that's in tech, sports, entrepreneurship, medicine, etc. Today, we're diving into the business and tech side of this world. I'm Ahan.
I'm Ashrit.
And I'm Aditya. And today we're joined by someone with a diverse range of experiences. This includes being a tech leader, angel investor, real estate investor, author, and entrepreneur. Michael Sarwari is currently Director of Business Development at G-Span Technologies, where he helps global companies transform through IT and consulting.
However, that's just the beginning. Michael has also founded the National Real Estate Investment Club, built one of the largest real estate companies in the US with $500 million in revenue in a single year, and has invested in multiple Silicon Valley startups. He's also shared stages with legends like Tony Robbins and Les Brown.
So, whether you're interested in tech, startups, real estate, or just want to understand what it takes to compete at the highest levels of business, this episode is perfect for you.
Mr. Sarwari, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to start off with the guest background and journey. So you studied biology at UC Davis before getting into business and eventually earning your MBA at Pepperdine University, and then your doctorate in business administration. What pulled you away from science and more towards entrepreneurship and business?
Wow, that's a great question. When I was planning on going to the university, what you don't see on my background, I actually went in and I was in the military. So I joined the military at 17. I actually was a combat medic in the military, and that put me into the medical field. And my dad really wanted me to become a doctor. So I actually went to school at UC Davis for 3 years, got a full ride scholarship to go to UNR, and basically finished a biology degree there. And then I took a year off, started my MS in computer science, and what you don't see in my background, and then dropped out of that program to go to medical school. So I actually went to medical school for 3 years before dropping out and getting into the tech world. But I was a developer. I was a programmer. I was a C++, Java developer. I actually wrote a lot of the early Java libraries at that time. So I already knew how to code really well. And my brother was in the tech field and called me up and said, "Hey, let's do tech," and never looked back. So that's how I got into tech.
It's great to hear.
Um, Moving on to the next question, you also mentioned you were a combat medic in the U.S. Army Reserve. What are some experiences and lessons you learned from the military that you could share with us today?
One of the most important lessons I learned in the military was discipline. And, I always tell my children, either you go to college and get a degree, or I'm sending you to the military for 2 years, then you're going to college and getting a degree. So either way, it's the discipline that you learn. And you can't teach that in today's world. And the second biggest thing was passion, right? Is learning how to be passionate about something and not holding back. And I think those are two lessons for young people, is that if you're passionate about something, then you don't look at the hours, you don't look at the clock. The clock doesn't matter at that point. You just go out there and do it. So when I first got into coding, I'd code 15, 16 a days, 18, 20 hours a day. I had my own company. I would code 20 hours a day, and I would never look at the clock. And sometimes people would be like, "You never sleep." I'm like, "Yeah, I got a cot right here. I'll take a nap for a few hours and then I'll back up and I'm coding again." So if you're passionate about something, time just flies by at that point. You don't look at the clock. So, but that's what I would say. I'd say stay passionate about what you want to do. And the other thing is be disciplined. People lack discipline today, especially with social media, phones, everything else. A lot of people lack discipline. If you can add those two things, you can build great things.
That's great to hear, Mr. Sarwari.
Lastly, for our questions in the education section, Mr. Sarwari, you built companies from scratch and also worked with giants like Apple, Wells Fargo, and Shutter Health. Was there ever a turning point in your career where you realized, I'm not just an employee, I'm an entrepreneur and investor at heart?
Yeah. So what's interesting is the first half of my career spans being an entrepreneur. So I started quite a number of different companies. As a matter of fact, one of the companies called National Realty. Me and my partner built it from the ground floor up. It was two of us. We built it to over 3,000 employees and $500 million in revenues. So you can imagine how big it grew. And then the market collapsed around us and it went upside down and we lost millions of dollars in the market. And after that, it was like going back into the job force, right? And the last 15 years, I've been in corporate America running, having leadership positions in some of the biggest companies across the country. So so I've seen both sides of it, and I've always been an entrepreneur at heart. I am an investor at heart. I still invest in early stage technology companies as well as real estate. So that aspect has never gone away. I own quite a number of other startups and companies I've invested in. So I'm always entrepreneur at heart, but at the same time, I always look at, picking up opportunities where I can, really give some parts of myself to.
So that's a great response, Mr. Swari. And that actually concludes the end of our guest background. So it's great to hear your background. Now we're going to move on to the main discussion section.
So this section is called Building the Business. Starting off, Mr. Sarwari, you built one of the largest real estate investment clubs known as National Real Estate Investment Club. What was your first move into real estate and how did you build this idea from the ground up?
Wow. So, I went back to school. I got a master's degree in business and finance and marketing from Pepperdine University. And after I got my MBA, I started off with a large investment banking firm called UBS. I worked there for a couple of years. And then from there, I actually had an opportunity to go out and I was a speaker. I used to speak around the country and I had an opportunity to speak at an investment club. And basically, I partnered with the gentleman that owned that club. And then eventually, after about a year, I decided to buy him out and took over his club and then ended up changing the name. And at one point, my club was one of the largest in the country with over 12,500 investors. And we were very active in the real estate market.
That's impressive. Yeah. So moving on to our tech section area, you work with Fortune 500 companies along with startups. In a world where we have both corporate businesses and startups, what are some lessons you would give to the young entrepreneurs who have to choose between the two?
So, depending on your age and where you are in life, if you have an opportunity to take risk and join a good startup, you guys live in Silicon Valley, and I don't think you guys understand the importance of the valley itself. The valley has some of the greatest companies ever known to grow from here. I mean, early off, I saw companies like Amazon, I saw companies like Yahoo, saw companies like Google grow from being nothing to what it is today, right? So over the span of my career, I've been very fortunate to be in the Valley. And as an entrepreneur in the Valley, you have great opportunities to join some amazing companies here where other people who don't live in the Valley really don't have the same opportunities as people do who do here in the Bay Area. So that's the first thing. So if you have an opportunity to join a startup, I would say highly take that opportunity because you get to do more in a startup than in a Fortune 500 company. Now, there's different lessons to be learned working for a startup versus a Fortune 500 company. Fortune 500 companies, you've got more structure, you've got more bureaucracy. So if you work at a Fortune 500 companies, you learn how to get around that structure and bureaucracy versus in a startup, you learn how to build something from literally from nothing to hopefully become something. But remember, for every Google that exists, there was probably 1,000 other companies in the search space that never made it. And I can tell you a bunch of names of those companies that never made it. There's companies like Lycos and Metacrawler. And you guys are young. You don't even remember this. I was there during that time period. I saw it being built. I saw it growing. I actually even started a search engine company myself that didn't make it. So I can tell you from that perspective, but there'll be one in 1,000. But you know what? If you do capture that one company, it would be amazing to watch it grow.
To go to our next question, Mr. Sarwari, you've been in both sides of the table. You've raised millions in capital for startups and also invested millions of dollars into startups. What makes investors actually say yes, and what mistakes do you see founders typically make when they're pitching their own business?
Yeah, one of the biggest mistakes that founders make when they're pitching investments to investors is they truly don't understand the financial side of the business, or if they don't understand the financials, they don't understand the delivery side of the business. So, for example, if you have a tech company, you got a bunch of great technologists, but they don't have a really good financial guy with them. They believe there used to be an old saying prior to 1999. There used to be a saying that said, if you build it, they will come. So that was the beginning of the internet, and that was the way things were, where that if you put something out there on the internet, people will just show up. That didn't happen. That really did not happen. Smart technology guys thought I can just build an app and people will show up. That's not the case. So you got to be able to look at building a solid business that you can execute with a strong financial model. A lot of times entrepreneurs forget the fact that, hey, look, it's a business, but you got to figure out how to make money as well. It's not always about the technology. It's not always about how cool it looks, but it's about making money. And that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs lack.
It's a good response. So, last but not least, for our building the business section, Mr. Shawari, I want to ask you about your risk management. So, as you probably already know, risk management is highly important in long-term success of any business. Are there any decisions that you can highlight that involve lots of risk and how you handle those decisions?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, building a business from the ground floor up, just in general, is risky, right? Any business you take. So think of it this way: when you start a new business, the in the first 2 years, 90% of businesses fail within the first 2 years. That's the risk that you take in its own. So how do you mitigate that risk? By putting together a solid a plan that you can execute and figure out, how do I break even on my business? You don't have to make money, even if you don't get paid, but how do I break even in the business within that first 2 years? And once I've broken even in the business, then the next step is, how do I grow this business? How do I make this exponentially bigger? And how do I create value? Now, you give me a business and I can show you how to create value in that business, but I can also show you how I would poke holes in that business for you as well. I don't know if you guys ever heard of SWOT analysis, right? So if you're getting a business, they call it a SWOT analysis, right? So it's so important to be able to do a SWOT analysis in your business and understand your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and eventually threats, right? If you truly do a correct SWOT analysis, it really helps you understand and mitigate your risk in that particular business.
That's a great response, Mr. Sarwari. Anyway, we're going to be moving on to our skills that matter section. Success is often connected to hard skills, but soft skills are like trust are just as crucial. From your experience, how do you build credibility and trust across different industries like you have?
Yeah, one of the most important ways of building credibility and trust is your ability to be able to say what you're going to do and be able to do it, right? So if you go out there, just like in publicly traded companies, they go out there and they put performers out there. And then when they deliver, what does the market do? The market comes back and generously helps them take their stock up. But if they don't say what they're going to do, then guess what they do? Their stock plummets, right? Basically, right? So in business in general, if you're going to say, I'm going to be able to do, here's my plan, don't give me excuses why you can't do that, right? If you're going to say what you're going to do, then you better have a plan that's really risk proof that you're going to be able to execute. Otherwise, I always say you better under promise and over deliver, right? So important to be able to do that. Don't over promise and under deliver, because that's where you lose credibility.
It's a great response. So moving on to the next question, it's actually quite short, but it's equally important to everything else. Mr. Sawari, in your everyday life, how do you build long-term relationships that matter? And is there any advice you would give to people who feel intimidated to do so?
Yeah, so one of the best ways to build long-term relationships, and whether it's in business or it's in your personal life, is really being able to know how to connect with people, right? And have something that you can connect with. I've had lots of people who have worked for me, even interns who have worked for me, where they've come back and they've reached out to me later on in life and said, "Hey, look, I need your help over here," and I'm always able to give them that help. But for me, one of the most important things is the ability to be able to connect with people and be able to communicate with people and make sure that that communication is crystal clear, right? So if you can do that, a lot of times what happens, especially with entrepreneurs, they can't communicate. They have a very difficult time communicating. We always call it that emotional intelligence, right, in the business. And a lot of times what happens is, especially in the IT sector, right, in the engineering side, there's that emotional intelligence that's missing out there in that side of the business. And if you can showcase that you have that emotional intelligence as well as the IT side, you'll go very far, in, especially in this sector.
Exactly. And correct me if I'm wrong, but a big part of that is also about dedication, right? If a person's not dedicated, there's not going to be any results, right?
Agree, agree. And dedication comes from where? Passion, right? It comes from something you love to do. That's where dedication comes from. Because if you love doing something, then it's no longer a job, right? Like you guys, if you love doing something, you don't care. You don't have to get paid to do that, right? You do it no matter what at that perspective because you love doing it. So always comes back to that passion, that love of doing something that you like. And from there, the sky's the limit.
Thanks for explaining that. So moving on to our skills that matter section, success is often connected to hard skills, but soft skills like trust are just as crucial. From your experience, how do you build credibility and trust across different industries?
So one of the most important ways to be able to build credibility and trust across
Actually,
industries
Mr.
is
Sorry, sorry, I believe I already
it's
asked
good.
that question. I
Yes,
already asked that question. I read the wrong question.
that's okay.
That section is over. So moving on to our next section, which is actually industry insights and tech trends. So, Mr. Sawari, you work across healthcare, finance, retail, and tech. Which industries or startups do you think are about to explode in the next 5 to 10 years, and where should the next generation be paying attention?
So right now, when I look at the industries that people should be paying attention, it's not specific industry. I think where the world is heading, especially with AI, I think the world right now is so vastly different than where it was 2 to 5 years ago, where the AI is really encompassing everything we do. Robotics is going to encompass everything we do. So let me give you a little story. So I have a good friend of mine. He and his venture capital firm, they invest heavily in robotics. About 10 years ago, they invested in robots that came out of Japan. And we were at a conference, and this was 10 years ago, before AI and ML has taken over like it has today. And I can tell you, I used to run the AI ML division for Wells Fargo. And I've seen this where the robotics and AI is going towards. But going back to this example, there was a robot, and that robot basically scanned me and basically used facial recognition to go on the internet, look up my LinkedIn page, look up my Facebook page, look up all information about me. Like even today, like I didn't give you guys any of this information about myself. You guys were able to do your research, do your homework, find information about me. I'm sure you could even find YouTube videos about me. You can find information about me, gather that information, and be able to have it at your fingertips without even coming to me. So what this robot did, all it did was scan me and knew everything about me and came in and said, hey, you know what? You're Mike Sarwari. I know where you live. I know what you do. This is where you work. Knew everything about me. That's the future. The future is not in a specific division. The future today is in AI. And if you are smart, you would want to get ahead of the curve in AI and ML right now.
It's good advice, Mr. Sawari. So now you said that, and now moving on, there's always hype around things such as crypto, metaverse, space tech. How do you personally separate real long-term trends from temporary hype when deciding where to invest your time and your money?
Yeah, so when you're looking at investing money, depends on whether you're looking at investing that money in the stock market or outside of the stock market. Now, I personally invest in the market, and I have a little bit of investments in all different sectors in the market. But the majority of investments that me and my partners make of our personal capital is in real estate right now. So we do heavy investments in the real estate sector versus the market. There's a lot of buzzword in the market, and I don't even want to go into those words like crypto, etc. But what I would say is just be careful as an investor when you're investing in the market. Really do your due diligence, do your homework, and just know the amount of risk you're going to take depending on the sector. Don't just follow what everybody else is telling you. Don't just follow everybody telling you to go invest in crypto. It doesn't work, let me tell you.
That's great to hear, Mr. Sarwari. So we're gonna move on to our next section called opportunities for high school students. Mr. Sarwari, if you're a high school student listening to this right now, planning on building wealth or starting a business, what would you advise yourself to do immediately in order to achieve this?
So, I go back, if I was in high school right now, this would be one of the most amazing times in life to be in high school. Let me tell you. So, Sam Altman, you guys heard of Sam Altman?
Yes.
Yes.
ChatGPT, right? So you look at Sam Altman, and Sam Altman said this a while back and said, I wish I was in high school right now because the opportunities that AI is presenting, it's enormous compared to ever in my lifetime. If I was back, 30 years ago and I was back, I was still in high school and I was just getting started in my life, oh my God, the type of things or the type of risk I would take would be enormous compared to when I was first getting started. And so today, I would say, hey, look, do your homework. Start getting educated about things that matter out there, and don't just go out there and take risks that are not going to give you anything out there. As a high school student, really think twice and invest in your education. And you have so many opportunities today to be able to do that. And then from there, you can build anything you want. Let me tell you.
Exactly. It's a perfect answer. So, Mr. Sora, getting a little bit more personal now. I was one of your students working alongside you for the Rotary Club, and you also run the National Real Estate Investment Club as well, which hosts educational webinars. So, what are some opportunities that you provide to high school students that they get involved today?
Right now, I know we did the internship here for high school students with the Rotary Club. We might be looking at doing that again. As a matter of fact, we have a couple of people from the tech sector that have joined the club, and they're thinking about doing a hackathon and other things like that. And they're going to be more involved, hands-on on the technology side. We're going to look at potentially looking at dabbling in AI and other things like that from that perspective. I'm also looking at potentially starting another business out here. And if I do, then I'm always looking for interns and opportunities that I give young students to be able to join my own personal companies. I've done that in the past, especially with college students, and I have recruited from some of the best college students in the country. And then those kids that have interned with me have moved on to managerial positions at Fortune 500 companies after those internships. So I do see there are some opportunities. So just stay tuned. I'll let you guys know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That sounds great, Mr. Sarwari. Moving on to our second to last section, which is rapid fire and Q&A. Just like say the first thing that comes to your mind when we ask these questions. So
Yeah, start off. What's your favorite form of investment?
Real estate right now, I'd have to say.
say okay.
Nice.
Okay.
One book you'd recommend to a teenager interested in business or investing?
Oh, one book that I would recommend. The 1 Minute Salesperson. It's an old book and it's been a while since I've read it, but I would definitely look at that as a great book that I would recommend. There's also a really good book on emotional intelligence I would recommend as well.
Sounds great. What about your morning routine?
My morning routine, I work till pretty late in the evening. I get up first thing in the morning. I take my kids to school, and then I am on calls with my offshore teams as well as on-site teams. So I actually have offshore development teams in India, and so I'm usually on calls back to back till 12 noon.
Nice. So, Mr. Sawari, if you weren't in tech or real estate, what completely different career would you be in?
Wow, if I wasn't in tech and real estate, I'd probably be in healthcare, is where I would be. So that's where I stemmed from, and not so much in healthcare as being a physician, but mostly running hospitals is what I would have been doing today. So I would have been more on the executive side of healthcare.
Great. And describe your leadership style in 3 words.
My leadership style in 3 words, I would say I am a very hands-on leader, is what I am. I would never ask somebody to do something that I wouldn't do myself.
Sounds great.
That's nice, Mr. Sawari. Now, before we wrap up, what's one final piece of advice you'd give to any high schooler who's curious about entering the business and entrepreneurship world but doesn't know where to start?
One advice that I would give to high school students that don't know where to start is, look, there's so many. If you go back and you look online right now, YouTube is a great place to start. Start looking at opportunities where I would say the first thing that I would tell most high school students, start learning about AI. Not just AI on how to use tools like ChatGPT, but learn about the LLMs of ChatGPT. Learn about how is ChatGPT utilized to be able to do development. How can I use tools like Copilot? How can I use tools like DeepSeek? Really understand and learn it today, because this is one of the few times in life that if you can showcase that you can get ahead of yourself, this is unbelievable time. Sam Altman said this, and I really believe it. And he said, look, young people can literally today get on ChatGPT, create an opportunity, and run a company and build it into $1 billion company and come up with an amazing idea where the majority of the uplift is done by ChatGPT. Whether it's programming, whether it's anything. So you literally imagine a one-person shop that could be worth $1 billion company. So I tell young people, take advantage of the situation today, take advantage of the tools that you have at your hands. And today is unlike any other time in history. This is the time to be able to do that.
You're right. It is the time to take advantage. So that was our last question. And yeah, so as we wrap up, thank you so much, Mr. Sawari. Your journey
Definitely.
shows that there isn't just one path from the army to healthcare to Fortune 500s to real estate. You've proven that skills carry across all industries.
And that's it for the episode of the Insider's Guide. We'll see you next time.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much, Mr.
Thank you for
Sawari.
having me.
Sorry.
Definitely. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.